by the military-industrial complex.
It could be seen to move violently forward, violently forward, violently forward.
I'm just a patsy.
Let's win there.
I said this once or twice, but it bears repeating. If you like your current insurance, you will keep your current insurance.
You think about the Army and the Navy and the missions they run to protect the world, they run on SAP.
Well, you have done a really spectacular job. I guess pretty much everybody at this table is your customer, so
Exactly.
That's not so bad.
Exactly.
I want to congratulate
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
And I'm back. And hopefully I fixed Substack. I made a mistake when I set things up this morning, and I apologize. So it looks like everything is going, and well, maybe Jessica can check to see on Substack if I'm actually broadcasting there. But in any case, welcome everybody, and thank you for showing up today. I noticed that my Apple FaceTime thing is breathing, and if that bothers you, I could probably figure out a way to turn it off. But in any case, today I wanted to talk about the last couple of stories that I posted on my Substack, because I think that I have been working this thought experiment out, and it seems to me valid that I've figured out the org chart for the deep state, the people that are in control of things. And a lot of these things may be self-evident to a lot of people, but I thought that the fact that it is incumbent in our iconography, that we're immersed in it, and that we are looking at it every day without actually knowing what it is, makes it a lot more real, at least for me. So for that, let me bring some slides up here, and let me just show you the story. I'll take this out. The story is, I had it all set up here, and now it's not there. I figured out why. Let's see. Share this tab instead. Here we go. So the story is called 60 Degrees, the 60 Degree Freemasonry Cabal. And I'm calling it 60 degrees because we all think of Freemasonry as having the highest degree of 33. But there's some interesting things about the numbers 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 plus 0 is 6. And it turns out that the angle of 60 degrees winds up having something, a lot of import in the, and of course my neighbor is now starting his bandsaw or whatever it is in the background. Anyway, 60 degrees winds up having a lot of significance when you start to try to figure out this thing that they call a cabal. And so I wrote this article, and this is kind of as a thought experiment, and I went through, all of these different gyrations that I was going through. But I'm gonna switch to the slides because I kind of have my thought process worked out here. So I'm calling it the 60 degree cabal, and there's a lot of interesting quotes that we have that kind of back up the finger in the air that's leading me in the direction that I'm going. So Benjamin Disraeli famously was a Jewish prime minister under Queen Victoria, and he said the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And this guy was the prime minister of Great Britain, and so you've got to imagine that he probably knew what he was talking about. This is at the height of the British Empire when they were basically unchallenged anywhere. So moving on to the next slide. Nikola Tesla said, if you only knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you would have the keys to the universe. And again, I think a lot of people were thinking about math when they were, when they read Tesla talking about this. But it turns out that the math may be a lot simpler than most people think. Woodrow Wilson said, some of the biggest men in the United States in the field of commerce and manufacture are afraid of somebody, are afraid of something. They know that there is a power somewhere so organized, so subtle, so watchful, so interlocked, so complete, so pervasive, that they had better not speak above their breath when they speak in condemnation of it. And here he is with his handler, Edward Mandell House. Winston Churchill said, time and the ocean have some guiding star, and high cabal have made us what we are. So again, these are the words of Winston Churchill. I'm not making this up. And Albert Pike, 33rd degree Mason, and the leader of Freemasonry, I think in North America, said, let the narrow-souled withdraw, having their ears sealed up. We communicate the divine mysteries to those only who have received the sacred initiation. Oh, ye initiates, ye whose ears are purified, receive this in your souls. Reveal it to no profane. Keep and contain it within yourselves and as an incorruptible treasure. So I'm going to reveal what I think is some secrets today, but nobody ever told me these secrets. I've kind of figured this out. I can let you know where I've gotten a few clues, and we can play a few videos, I think, to show you where I kind of started to pick up on this. But let's finish off here with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who said, in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. And I'm taking all of these gentlemen at their word. I'm believing that they're not speaking out of hand, that they've got experience in all of this. So Winston Churchill used the word cabal, and we all have heard of this thing called Kabbalah. And Kabbalah, as Robert Frederick, who runs The Hidden Life is Best, comments, Kabbalah is something that can break your brain. it's one of these things where it's so esoteric and it's so kind of inside baseball that when you start to try to dig into it and understand what it is, you realize, oh, I could spend the rest of my life doing this. And I'm not sure what you get out of it, because it's all talking, it's all illuminating this kind of transcendent idea. And for people who have been following this channel for a while, you understand that, when I take a look at like the red letter quotations in the New Testament from the witness testimonies, what I've been doing is I've been breaking those things down linguistically, and looking at the linguistic technique that Jesus uses in order to reframe people's beliefs. And at a point where you start to understand the blocking and tackling of the linguistics, you realize that epistemologically, it isn't incumbent that you necessarily believe in miracles if you understand what he is saying. That is, if the correct path is to love your neighbor or to love your enemies, then the miracles are nice. But if people are actually doing that, that I think is the intended impact of the belief system. And likewise, in Kabbalah, once you start to understand that there are people who worship, I'm going to use the words loosely, they worship in the church of Kabbalah, and then there are Freemasons. And Freemasons, in my estimation, have kind of adopted Kabbalah the same way that some sect may adopt the Bible and then start interpreting the Bible the way that they want it to be interpreted. But, I'm a graphics guy. I've been doing photography and graphics for my whole life. And so I've spent a lot of time just looking at the dots and the lines on this. You can, again, there's rabbit holes with gematria and numbers and Hebrew characters and words and all kinds of things that go with this. But I'm going to stick with the dots and the lines that connect the dots for the purposes of this conversation, because I think that the rest of it, in a lot of ways, is what I call bafflegab or nonsense. It's a smokescreen, at least as far as the way that Freemasonry implements Kabbalah. Okay, there's a giant asterisk here for people. Andrew, trying to remember his last name. Andrew Meyer is a friend of mine, and he's a big Kabbalist, and he gave me a Zohar once, which burned in the fire. I didn't read it because it's in Hebrew, and I don't know what it means. But I believe that there are people out there in the world who get into this stuff, and they're really into this stuff, and they really believe that it's transcendent and brings them illumination and all kinds of stuff. I'm not sure that that's exactly how the Freemasons use this stuff. And that's kind of my big caveat today. So for people who want to tell me that it's got all of this hidden meaning and they want to illuminate me, I'm not talking about that today. I'm just talking about shapes. Today we're going to talk about dots and lines, okay? Because the Kabbalah is confusing. Each one of these dots is called a sephiroth. It's called a sephiroth when it's on the tree of life, and it's called something else, I think, when it's on the tree of death. But it's got a number, it's got, and then it's got a Hebrew, or it could be Phoenician, because the Phoenicians actually use the same alphabet as the Hebrews. And it's got a word, and that word means something. And then we can have a big argument about what the word means, because as people who have watched this channel before understand, there's this political translation process called hermeneutics. So determining whether or not you actually are translating a word correctly becomes a whole, kind of a discipline in and of itself. But for today's discussion, I'm really just going to stick with the dots. So again, each one of these dots, Sephiroth, I'm going to call them dots. It'll so that anybody who is a Kabbalist purist will they'll put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la, and they'll run away. Okay, because I'm just going to talk about these dots, and these dots have numbers. Okay, that's all you really need to know. Dots, numbers. Okay, I'm going to make this really simple. There's a tree of life and there's a tree of death. Okay, and again, it's dots and numbers, and the concepts that are on one of the trees roughly represent some kind of opposite or dichotomy on the tree of death. Okay, but it's just as confusing. So I've got all of these things are on my Substack. So if you want to go dig into any of these definitions or any of this other stuff, go have at it. It's all there. So my thought in looking at all of this, again, putting on my epistemological warfare hat, is that it's confusing on purpose. It's confusing because they want people who are uninitiated, the people that they refer to as the profane, to go down rabbit holes and not actually understand what they're looking at. And what I discovered, and again, hat tip to Robert Edward Grant and his channel, because I didn't know this before I was watching one of his Instagram videos one day, that there is a geometric a drawing that you can make with a compass and a straight edge that's called Metatron's cube. And again, I'm not a Freemason, and I everything that I know about Freemasonry is something that's I've either read or somebody has told me. Okay, so I don't know this by experience, but my understanding of Freemasonry is that in the first degrees, the geometry winds up becoming a very important thing, and learning how to do things like creating all of the Platonic solids with a compass and a straight edge become a very important thing to do. And so the most complicated thing that you can come up with is this thing, which is called Metatron's cube. And Metatron's cube is interesting because within this Metatron's cube, you can define all of the Platonic solids. And then there's a bunch of what they call compound solids that you can put together. Something like a star tetrahedron, which is a polygon that looks like a Star of David. So this is Metatron's cube, and this is something that people who are indoctrinated into Freemasonry learn in their initial steps into Freemasonry. So in Metatron's cube, you can I'll just go through here. There's a tetrahedron, there's a cube, which is called a hexahedron. There's an octahedron, there's a dodecahedron, and I don't exactly understand how the dodecahedron fits in here, full disclosure, and something called an icosahedron. And then there's a bunch of other shapes too, like I said, but they can all be defined once you've learned how to draw this thing called Metatron's cube. This is called a star tetrahedron, which is kind of a three-dimensional Star of David. So in Metatron's cube, you've got five Platonic solids. You've got Archimedean solids. I'm not going to read this whole list. You can screenshot it or go look it up yourself. But there's a bunch of different shapes that you can put in this cube. What did I call it? Metatron's cube. Freemasons learn how to draw this stuff. Okay, and they learn how to draw it so they can memorize it. And it turns out, and again, this is something that I picked up on watching Robert Edward Grant, the Kabbalah trees fit perfectly their geometry on Metatron's cube. So this is a Kabbalah tree, and you could see that the top Sephiro circle thing, which is the number one Keter position, lines up with the top of the Metatron's cube, and then the center one, which is the number one, number 10 is on the bottom, and it lines up perfectly in the center there. And then the other circles have a geometric relationship to the Metatron's cube, and so you can add, if you turn these things at 60-degree angles like a clock, you can actually lay Metatron's, the tree of life, tree of death, on top of Metatron's cube, and it makes this snowflake looking thing. And I started looking at it, and one of the things that occurred to me was that the pattern sort of fits the star pattern that is above the eagle's head on the Great Seal of the United States of America, which looks like this. So these are the 13 stars that are on top of the eagle's head. And if you try to line them up, they don't really line up. You can see that they don't line up here. And so what you need to do in order to get them to line up is that you need to turn the diagram 30 degrees. And if you turn it 30 degrees, then they line up perfectly. And then you get this Star of David arrangement of 5-pointed stars that are in the Great Seal of the United States of America. And again, I looked at this for a while. I didn't spontaneously think, oh, this is an org chart. I saw that they lined up, and then I was looking at this, and I was thinking, what is this? What is this? What is this? And it occurred to me, well, the first thing that occurred to me was that they like to have alternating trees. They have tree of life, tree of death. Now, I'm not sure if it's 3 white trees on the right side and 3 black trees on the left side, or whether or not they're alternating. I haven't figured that part out yet. Okay. But I definitely think that there's probably alternating trees here. And then I had this question, which is this a map? Is it a game board? Is it an org chart? Or is it all 3? And again, these are the questions that I'm asking myself as I'm looking at this thing. The Great Seal of the United States of America is curious because, and this is not the original Great Seal of the United States of America. It went through many, many iterations, and if you go to the Wikipedia page for it, you can find all of them. Okay, but it's got an interesting arrangement because it's got 6 groups of 13. It's got 13 stars, 13 leaves, 13 berries or olives. I guess maybe they're olives. 13 stripes, 13 feathers, and 13 arrows. So there are 6 groups of the number 13. It's curious, right? So I looked at this for a while and scratched my head and tried to figure out what this means. And, you know, I played around with different configurations of this and different configurations of the numbers. And it occurred to me that in our culture that stars are people. You know, my cousin was just lamenting that Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban have just broken up. Okay, they're stars, right? But they're people. So people are stars. And so I started looking at this again, and the saying that goes above the eagle's head on this is "e pluribus unum," out of many one. All right, but it doesn't say out of many. And again, I've learned this from neurolinguistic programming. Out of many what? One what? What are you talking about? There's parts missing in the saying, right? And so I started playing around with the idea of out of many oligarchs, one country project that's being controlled by an oligarchy. And the 13 stars represent the control of the country, the people, the stars who are in control of the country, right? So this is an idea that I'm playing around with. And if you lay the Great Seal stars on top of the 6 Kabbalah trees of life, it starts to look more like an org chart to me. And so I was looking at the center space, and I was thinking a lot about the Venetian oligarchy and the way that the Venetian, so assume that the stars in this diagram are oligarchs. In the Venetian system of oligarchy, then and the Venetians, by the way, ran a system of dark punishment that was called a star chamber, right? In the Venetian oligarch model, the center star would be, I'm skipping ahead. Before I get to the next point, let me just point out that one of the things about this diagram, when you start to look at it and you start to understand what the function of the tree of life and the tree of death are, is that each one of these right hand, left hand paths that they call them, or dark path and light path, okay, they represent a spectrum, a dichotomy, right? Or the poles on a spectrum. And so you have dichotomies everywhere. You have dichotomies from across the tree, and then you have dichotomies from tree to tree. So dialectic is built into this system. And not only dialectic, but because of the number 3, you always have a third way. So, we've been fighting for 150 years. We've been fighting the communism versus capitalism fight so that we can get to the third way, technocracy, right? This is the direction that the oligarchy is going in. So all of these dichotomies are built into the structure of this system. So the 13 stars are oligarchs. And what does that mean? Does it mean that there's only 13 people who run the world? No. It means that there's 13 people. There's a dark government someplace, okay? And they pick 13 representatives. They're oligarchs. What does that mean? It means that they have more wealth probably than all of the public wealth in the world put together. Okay. There's a lot of off-books wealth in the world. And we look at people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and we think, oh, these guys are the richest people in the world. And they're not. They're just the richest people in the world that we know about. They are selected as representatives and are probably all on this chart right here. Okay. But they're picked from a bigger group of oligarchs. And so, so there's 13 oligarchs that ostensibly run the world, right? And the one that we see, okay, that we have the most visibility of is called the doge, okay? And so this is why when Elon Musk started calling himself the doge and wearing doge hats, I was laughing because I thought, well, he is the doge and he's winking in a very, Michael Hoffman explains it as truth or consequences kind of way, meaning if you recognize that he's a doge, then you will get it. And if you don't, then the joke's on you. That's the consequence, right? So you got 13 oligarchs. The 13 oligarchs pick one of them to be the doge, okay? And the thing is about the doge is that he doesn't serve at the pleasure of us, okay? The doge may be the president of the United States. From time to time, he probably is. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was probably a doge, okay? But what winds up happening is that if you're in the doge position, okay, you basically have 2 jobs. One is to be the tiebreaker for the oligarchs. So if 6 of the oligarchs are not agreeing with the other 6 oligarchs, then the doge gets to be the tiebreaker. And then the other thing that the doge gets to do is that he gets to take credit for all of the things that are going on, okay? But if the 12 oligarchs, okay, don't think that the doge is doing a good job, they can replace him. And they can replace him in a nice way where they tap him on the shoulder and they say, you know what, I don't know if this is working out, because I kind of see, like, in the last 4 or 5 years, you see Bill Gates being the doge for a little bit, and then Larry Ellison being the doge for a little bit. And now Elon Musk is the doge for a little bit, and who knows, who the next doge is. And, maybe when Donald Trump got to be president, they told him and Elon they could be co-doge. I don't know. I don't know what. Again, I'm making all of this up, right? But I'm being inspired by, the Great Seal of the United States of America and the fact that they call this thing a cabal, and it's based on Kabbalah, right? So, outside of the oligarchy, there are 6 groups of 6 roundtables. Now, we all know that roundtables exist. Cecil Rhodes famously talked about how they were set up. And he talked about how there was an inner circle of the elected and an outer circle in an association of helpers. And then he set up a group that was called the Round Table Group. And so I think that the way that the cabal works is that they have roundtables. So they've got the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission and the World Health Organization and, you name it, the Club of Rome. The list is a mile long, right? But they're basically organized in these 6 constellations that are more or less in opposition with one another, okay? Because in order to affect change, you have to affect the Hegelian dialectic. You have to implement the problem, reaction, solution, thesis, antithesis, synthesis framework. And so these groups are set up in opposition with each other on multiple different levels. And then what winds up happening is that they need to be coordinated. And I'll get to that in a second. So the blank space here is intelligence services. Okay. I find it very interesting that there's an organization that's called Five Eyes, right? Which is supposedly 5 intelligence agencies, but there's a big wink because everybody knows that those 5 intelligence agencies all work with Mossad. So, if you asked me who the 6 intelligence agencies on this chart are, it would be Five Eyes plus Mossad. And that fills out the org chart. Now, as far as communication is concerned, the lines on the diagram, those are not telephone lines, right? These are not direct communication channels as we know it. They're people, okay? So if you've got a guy like, pick anybody, Larry Ellison, Reid Hoffman, Nicholas Berggruin, Jeff Bezos, Tim Cook, okay? These guys sit on multiple boards of directors. They sit on multiple steering committees of corporations. And so corporations and government, NGOs and foundations. And so the links, the lines on this diagram, they're people. Okay, so Peter Thiel is on this chart someplace, all right? And if you take a look at the way that the charts are organized, I'm going to count 2 dots out from the doge. The first round table that's 2 dots out from the doge on any of these charts is the coordinating round table for that tree. Okay. So what does that mean? It means that, I probably should have made a slide for this, but I'll try to talk you through it. So 2 dots out from the doge, left or right, there is a round table. Let's call it the Council on Foreign Relations. Okay. That round table has direct relationships with 3 different oligarchs. Let's call them David Rockefeller and I don't know. I can use 1930s oligarchs. Let's use John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and Andrew Carnegie. Okay. And that roundtable has direct connections with all three of those people. But it also has direct connections with 5 other roundtables and one of the intelligence agencies. Okay, let's call it the CIA or the OSS in that time. Or before that, it was the special executive from Great Britain. Okay, so for each one of these 6 trees, there is an organizing steering committee, and for each of the trees, there's an owner oligarch, and there is 2 oligarchs that coordinate with the other trees to the left or the right. So why is this important? The reason that it's important is because being a communication plan, it makes it very difficult for people who are on the outside to figure out what's going on. So imagine that the 6 oligarchs that are responsible for putting the doge in power, the only time that they can communicate with each other directly is through the doge, okay, or through one of the coordinating oligarchs. They don't talk to each other ever. They aren't seen with each other at meetings. In this way, they keep their relationships with each other discreet. And they're only communicating with each other through roundtables with people who are other members of the same roundtable, or they're communicating through other oligarchs. But they're not getting together. They're not meeting like Bill Clinton on the tarmac with somebody and having a conversation with them. These people don't associate with one another. This way, this left-right dichotomy of, George Soros is on the left and, the Koch brothers are on the right, and you'll never see them, at the same conference sitting and talking to each other. That's because they have this chart memorized. And that's because this is the operation manual, the communication plan for the cabal. It's the way that they keep the dichotomies going, is by pretending that they're on different sides. My guess is that it's the roundtable groups that are as far away from the Doge as possible that are actually the governments, or the let's call it the RNC, the DNC, Labor, the Tories. They're about as far away from power as you can imagine. They are strictly there in order to make us believe that there is power, right? So this is what the cabal looks like when you turn the lights on. The people at the top have this map in their heads. And the reason that I'm bringing it back to geometry and bringing it back to Freemasonry, I believe that most Freemasons probably don't have any idea of what I'm talking about here. They probably don't. But if you become a Freemason, you get taught all of these different ways to draw things and remember them. And the advantage of a system like this is that once you've learned how to draw it, once you've memorized which of these dots connect to the other dots, then you understand if you want to get somebody, if you know that somebody on the opposite side of this chart needs to do something in order to be able to support the thing that you're trying to get done, and you guys are all working in the same direction anyway, then this gives you the communication path for how you can communicate with those other people in a way that maintains operational security and compartmentalization. So now you have the map too. Let's see if we got some questions here. I'm going to take this off and see if I can answer a few questions here. From Substack, Garbage Field Farm, Kabbalah for the layman. Yeah, see, becoming a god really helped me get my head around this. Okay, so get your head around what? Because I want to know whether or not Kabbalah for the layman taught you to multiply this by 6 at a 60-degree angle and then use it as an org chart. Because if you did, hats off. And if somebody has figured this out before me and I haven't tripped over myself finding them, let me know. But is Kabbalah for the layman talking about how this is a command and control structure for a cabal that's running the world? Because I haven't seen that. Somebody else said, "Hey Peter, do we know the etymology of the word doge?" Yes. Ironically, the word doge means duke. It is the same as my last name. Anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. I've been going for 41 minutes, and does anybody have any questions? We can go and look at the chats, and let me see if I can find something, because I think I'm on Facebook today for the first time in a long time, but I'm not sure how I would find that. Let me see. Anyway, all right, this isn't very good video. Peter, I should talk. Let me go look and see some other questions here. Somebody said, why was Elon booted from Trump's inner circle? Because he was the Doge. Because it's a school play. Okay, government is fake. Okay, I think the whole, I've said this, I kind of said this glibly. When I was a fashion photographer, I used to make a joke that I thought everything was for sale in Vogue, because I thought all the models were for sale too. Later, I found out that was true. I've been joking around for about 3 years now that I think that our government is a TV show, and I think that it's a TV show. And so when you ask why was Elon booted from Trump's inner circle, because the showrunners decided that that would make better television, and it would keep everybody believing that this government thing is real. And I don't believe it is. I believe it's very good at convincing you that it's real. It's very good at convincing you that you put all of these people in power when you didn't. And I also think that it's very good at taking your stuff and killing you if it wants to. So that's the answer to that question. Diane Smith says that the government is a big clown show. It's literally a clown show. It's literally I just put a book called Clowns up on the Duke Report book section because Michael Hoffman was referring to it in his book, Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. It's literally a clown show. Those people are there to entertain and make you believe that they're in control. And believe me, if Donald Trump, again, the Doge has two choices in situations. He can go along with whatever the other people want to do, okay, or he can be replaced. And his replacement can be gentle, or his replacement can be a signal to everybody about what's going on. So it's literally a clown show. Somebody says, I deal with truthers who get sucked back into the lie when Trump says something snarky. The greatest poop show on earth. How can we win when people who have been awakened fall back in? Well, by asking questions. That's the simple answer. We need to learn how to ask those people questions like, well, why do you believe that's true? Or if, I need to have an example to be able to frame it, but we need to ask people questions that cause them to question their own belief systems, the same way that Jesus did in the red letter Gospels, and that's the way you do it. Let me see. Somebody said, could China and Russia destroy this? China and Russia are part of this. Okay. They may not be all in. Okay. But as long as Russia and China have central banks that are associated with the globalist banking system, then they're just part of it. So I don't really see them as separate. I think that there is a George Orwell 1984 school play that goes on that wants us to believe that Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, and those examples. But China and Russia, the people who run China and Russia right now are in on this. I'm convinced at this point. So the answer is not another country. The answer is you. The answer is you. Okay, you're the only person who can do anything about it. And what you can do is you can start asking people questions that wake them up. Don't try to explain it to them without A, building rapport first, and then B, asking them questions that cause them to go into their own cognitive dissonance, and then be ready with the answers for them. So those would be my suggestions. Fear-Free Solution says 192 countries are all in on it. Yeah. Or I would put it this way. The people that represent themselves as being the governments of those countries are all in on it. I don't think any of the people in any of those countries are in on it, which is why their position is so tenuous. Because the easiest thing in the world, here's why asking people questions is the answer. The easiest thing to do in the world is to turn people's thinking back on. And the way that you do that is by asking them questions. You don't do that by telling them what's up. You do it by asking them questions, because once you get that curiosity thing going in somebody, they'll find the answers. Okay. So the people, there was a person who was leaving, I have comments turned off. If you want to leave comments on my articles, become a paying subscriber on the Duke Report. Otherwise, the way that the trolls and the non-thinkers get into my conversation scheme is through notes on Substack. And in the last couple of days, probably since I talked to Veronica Swift, it seems like the troll comments have gone up, but there's all kinds of people who are always trying to explain things to me. And I don't respond well unless somebody's answering a question that they know that I've asked, the people who get the most attention from me are the people who ask me questions that I can't answer, because then I try to figure out what the answer to the question is. And that's the key. That's the secret. That's the clue to the whole thing. The whole reason that Jesus said, turn the other cheek and love your enemy and love your neighbor, is because you have to assume that the Chinese and the Russians and Hamas and the Israelis and all of the other people who are in some kind of dichotomy or dialectic right now, they've all been fed the same line of bullshit that we have. Okay. And that the natural state of man is not to drop a bomb on somebody else. That's not how we're wired. It's not what we do. And so if you assume that the people that you're opposed in, right now you can call them, if you're on the right, you're calling them libtards, or, all these poor people who have been fooled into believing that they're trans. I think these people have been hypnotized. Like they are victims. We need to love them because, they've made choices in their lives that they're probably going to have to live with for the rest of their lives. And because, if you go the surgical route, a lot of that stuff, you can't go back. And so those people are going to live at their lives in this kind of like doomed way. We have to love them. We have to embrace the fact that they made those decisions and approach them with compassion. And so anything that's a dialectic right now is going to wind up being a problem, because you can see from the chart, and I'll put it back up. Right here. I'll go through here. Here we go. Dialectic is built into this. Okay. So they're always trying to move you. they're always trying to pit one team against another. I mean, the Charlie Kirk thing, I posted a comment that said that I said that it doesn't matter whether or not Charlie Kirk was killed or not. Now, that doesn't mean that shooting somebody is a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. And if indeed Charlie Kirk was shot, I mean, what I know is I saw videos on the internet, and people in social media and on the news have said that he was shot. That's what I know. I don't know that he's dead. And what I do know from watching the conversations on social media is that there's a whole bunch of people who think that it's terrible that he got shot. There's a whole bunch of people that think that it's okay that he got shot, which I don't agree with. And then there are many people who claim that he wasn't shot, and then they're trying to show you evidence of how he was not shot. I don't know what the truth is. What I do know, though, is that all of these things, all of these memes are active in social media, and they are being set up, if you look at this chart, the same way that things are set up on this chart. They're set up in opposition with one another, okay? Assume that, Charlie is one of the dots that's got multiple arrows pointing into it. And you've got people that are being torn in multiple directions, right? And the idea is that while we're all fighting about that, Congress is passing all of these laws. There's all of these things that have been passed into law. Trump is essentially, as far as I can tell, erasing a lot of our First Amendment rights by virtue of the fact that, he's attacking the right set of people to attack. But we need to love our neighbors. We need to love the people that are trying to, and that's where I do agree with Erica Kirk. I think everything else about her is creepy. Okay. But we need to forgive and love our neighbors and love our enemies, because they're being psyoped too. The psyop is universal. It's being applied to everyone. And if you don't hate someone, you're going to wind up becoming a target yourself. I'm making myself a target by telling you don't hate anybody because they want you to hate someone. So there it is. Somebody said Tyler's connection to valve companies. Candace found out. Here's what is interesting to me about Tyler. Tyler's name is Tyler, and the Tyler in Freemasonry is the guard of the front door. He's the guy who stands by the front door. I think he's the guy with the stick, okay, to make sure that nobody interrupts their ceremony. Well, the guy who's a suspect is named Tyler. The guy who's the CEO of Turning Point USA's name is Tyler. And if you watch the Snake Eyes movie, the boxer who is one of the lead characters in the movie, his name is Tyler. So there's 3 Tylers in this story. That's the interesting part to me. The more Tylers that it is, the more that I think that this is a Freemasonic truth or consequences wink going on. Henry Strolling says, if the founding fathers were part of this, why did they allow so much freedom in the Constitution? They believe because they had a whole continent. Okay. They had an empty continent. They needed to take over the whole continent. Right. And they needed to make big promises to people. And to be specific, Henry, freedom was something that was discussed in the Declaration of Independence. The Constitution does not grant anyone freedom. It's the only times that freedom is mentioned in the Constitution is negative freedoms. It's things that the government is not allowed to impinge. Okay, the government's not allowed to impinge on your freedom of speech, right? But freedom is something that you own, right? What was delivered in the Constitution was liberty. Liberty is freedom that's bestowed on you by the federal government. That is, it's something that can be given to you and taken away from you. That's fundamentally different than freedom. And yet, if you go to your next dinner party, and you sit at the table with a group of your friends, and you ask them, how many people here know the difference between the word liberty and the word freedom? My guess is that in high likelihood, the number is 0, because most people do not know the difference between the word liberty and the word freedom. I'm glad you bought my book. One of the things I was thinking about when I was working on this the last couple of days is how much of this maps back directly to my book, because the reason that I published Stealth Power and the Illusion of Democracy is because I believed that there seemed to be some truth in the methods and practices of the people who were purported to have written the book, but I didn't necessarily think that it was the Jews, and nor do I think that today. Nor do I necessarily think it's necessarily Freemasonry. Okay, but I believe that the people who are initiated as Freemasons already have the blocking and tackling to be able to manage this secrecy framework, and so I think that they're recruited out of Freemasonry. That is my thought. In fact, before I started the show, let me see if I can bring these up. Like, I found this channel. I'm double clicking on something and it's not doing what I want it to do. Take this out. Oh. Okay, this is weird. Sorry, folks. Maybe if I do it this way. Finder. I can't get to my Finder. I can't open a file. I'm having technical problems. Anyway, okay, so here's a troll. The gold color. Candace Owens is a Jesuit agent, in my opinion. I think that's laughable. I think Candace Owens is married to a guy who's a lord. I mean, a lord to be. His father is in the House of Lords, and I believe that there's a lot of people in this chart who are in the House of Lords. And I think that the joke on everybody is Israel did it, because Israel, anytime that Johnny Vedmore is blaming the CIA, or Milo Yiannopoulos is blaming Israel for something, it's like Candace blaming Israel for something. I think that the British, the Crown intelligence is at the top of the control mechanism, and that Israel fulfills British Empire geopolitical strategic goals. And so if you're not looking at Great Britain when you try to figure out what's going on in Israel, then you're looking in the wrong place. And Richard Poe seems to be one of the only voices on the. Now I think he's got holes in his theses also. In his thesis also, but in general, I agree with Richard Poe that you got to look at the City of London. If you're blaming Israel, you're not going far enough, because the City of London is controlling everything that's going on in the Middle East right now. Let's see what else. Somebody says King banks with Rothschild, command and control run by Israeli agents. So, some of them, okay, again, I'll go back to the let's see, oligarchs, doge, right here. Okay, so there's 6. Here's the way it works. Okay, the Mossad does things where it's illegal for CIA to do it. Okay, it's illegal for the CIA to blow up the Twin Towers, so Mossad does it. It's illegal for Mossad to do things in Israel, so MI6 does it. It's illegal to shoot Charlie Kirk or stage his fake death in Utah for the CIA or the FBI to do it. So, the Aussies do it, or the Mormon Mafia. who's probably attached to, I don't know, MI6. That's the way that's the reason that they've got 6 intelligence agencies. Otherwise, if they had one, they wouldn't be able to blame each other for fun and games, which is what they call it. So, but the Rothschilds, the King's banks, the Rothschilds are in here. Okay. The British royal family is in here. They don't have as much power as many people think that they've got, but they are the landholders. They do own more real estate than anybody on the planet. There's that. They are trillionaires. There's that. Let's see. See if there's any other questions. Just looking. Somebody said exactly. The Crown, Great Britain, Netherlands seem to be the hidden hand. They are. And this is their hidden hand right here. This is the map. And so the game, the next step becomes to fill in the dots, right? The next game, and if you understand that, okay, Peter Thiel is definitely one of the 13 stars here, I think. Okay, he may be the Doge, who knows? But I think Peter Thiel and Elon Musk are on here. I think Larry Ellison is on here. I think Reid Hoffman is on here. They're the oligarchs, right? Maybe Warren Buffett, Larry Fink. There's a few, right? And then there's other people who are in controlling positions on roundtables. So basically what happens is that you build yourself up through their system. If you think that government is the far extreme, so the farthest dot away from the Doge, those are the organizations. That's the Republican Party, the Democratic Party. And the way that works is that you work your way up from, from an elected official or a bureaucrat, right, to a low-level roundtable group, to a higher-level roundtable group, to a controlling roundtable group, where you wind up getting anointed by an oligarch, okay? Jeffrey Sachs is a very interesting character. He definitely is on this board someplace, okay? All of these people are on this board someplace. The question is whether or not they're one of the 13 controlling oligarchs or whether or not they're in a senior steering committee position on or on multiple round tables, meaning that they are one of the lines on the board. They're on a dot and they're on a line. But the reason that I wanted to kind of share this with everybody is because if we can start to figure out who those people are and what dots they're on, then we can come up with better explanations for things like Charlie Kirk's assassination, or what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza. I started reading a really interesting book yesterday called, I've got it here on my Kindle, I think, or no, it's Audible. And it's called, I think it's called The Invention. Yeah, it's called The Invention of the Jewish People. And the guy who wrote this book is a professor emeritus at a university in Israel, and he's got a very, very different. He's got a very, very. I would say he's got the status quo in the establishment that runs the government of Israel right now is not in alignment with the guy who wrote this book. But if we can start to understand a few of these concepts, then we can start to look at the news. We can fill in the dots, and we can actually figure out what's really happening. And there is no good strategy for defeating this without knowing what we're up against. And so if we can see the cabal for what it is, pull the curtain back on the Wizard of Oz to kind of reveal all of this stuff, then I think that we're going to be in much better shape. We'll be able to figure out a solution to this. But this is the same problem that Plato was talking about 3,000 years ago. So I'm not sure that it's going to happen in my lifetime. But so let me see. So Humble said, "Is this just a thought exercise? The deciphered graph where you place these big movers. Well, I think I just kind of talked about that. I'm not, again, I'm trying to go through this thing in stages. It's really, you could probably start with the Rothschilds, for example, and then try to figure out how to work their network out. But if you have a framework, if you understand, oh, George Soros, this looks like where George Soros would be. This looks like where David Rockefeller would be, right? Then you can start to fill this chart out. Oh, this is where the Council on Foreign Relations is. Oh, here's the Bilderberg Group. Oh, here's the Trilateral Commission. Oh, here's the Club of Rome. All right. You can start to kind of slot all of these things in. The one thing that I haven't figured out completely yet, although I talk about it in the article, is what do the 6 trees represent? Now, let me see if I could pull this up. Sorry, I'm having technical issues today, folks. I will share this. And so I talked to Victoria Swift last week, and she said in a lot of the occult survivors that she interviews, now what's interesting to me about this is that in Victoria Swift's taxonomy, the 7 she called the 7 people in control of what's going on. She calls the 7 witches. And if you count the doge and then the 6 oligarchs that are direct connectors to the doge, that matches her ontology. Okay. So I don't know anything about witches. She's the expert on witches, but if the 7 oligarchs are also witches, okay, which would make sense because Elon Musk wears his Diablo Halloween costume with, the goat head on his chest at the same time that he's calling himself the Doge. Then that would make sense. I don't know that that's true, but the one thing that caught my attention though, when I was talking to her, and that was on last week's show, and I think I have it in bold here so I can find it quickly, is. Say, I could just search for the word government and find it faster, probably. Sorry about my dogs. Government. Here we go. Oh, yeah. So Veronica Swift, according to Veronica Swift, occult survivors categorize the constituent groups into the 6 disciplines: media, banking, education, government, science, and transcendent beliefs. So if we assume, for argument's sake, that these 6 trees indicate media, banking, education, government, science, and transcendent beliefs, then we can work our way backwards from there. So we know who the oligarchs, we can name, Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison and those people and George Soros and spot them in the middle someplace. And then we can name each tree. Oh, this is the government tree. Or if this is the media tree, then where's the coordinating committee? Who's the coordinating roundtable for media? Who's the coordinating roundtable for banking? Clearly, it's the Bank of International Settlements. So that if you were going to do finance, right? And then who would the oligarch be? Who would be the oligarch that would be picking the Doge and in control of finance? My guess is that would be Larry Fink. I'm guessing, right? And likewise, science, it seems to be Bill Gates. Bill Gates seems to be the guy who is science. So like I said, we can make a game out of this. Maybe what we do is that we start printing this thing out with blanks, and it could be like, fantasy football or something. And you can try to fill out your own tree and try to determine, what the map of the cabal reality is. Because if we can figure out a way, and maybe we turn it into a game like Monopoly. If we turned it into a game like Monopoly and then everybody had this thing memorized, then they'd start watching television in maybe a little bit different way. Maybe we should do that. I am not sure. Anyway, Do we have any other questions? Does anybody want to see Quigley? That's not Quigley barking in the background there, by the way. Somebody says, I don't believe anybody is those dots. I believe, in my opinion, they represent that ideology for that dot. Well, who executes the ideology? Okay. This is the part that people always completely fall down on. Okay. This is all being done by people. Okay. And I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to bring on Quigley. Here we go. We're going to take this away. And this is Quigley.
He's getting big.
Quigley has doubled in size since he
20 pounds.
He's 20 pounds since he became the official dog of the Duke Report. And he's doing well. We signed him up for dog training today. The dog trainer was here. And it's very exciting. We're all very excited. Anyway, if you want to support the Duke Report, you can do that by looking at any of these links right below here. You can go to thedukereport.com/shop. You can go to thedukereport.substack.com. You can become a paying subscriber. I don't charge for the articles on the Duke Report. I do all of this work and I put all my work out there for free. And for free, like beer. No, for free. And it's funny. Somebody's saying it was the Doge Report. That's hilarious. Where did it go? So here's the deal. I put this stuff out, and if you think that I'm delivering value to you, then do me a favor and support us so that we can. Because I'm retiring from any kind of political photography at this point. I've turned down my last 2 gigs to shoot pictures because I simply don't believe in politics anymore. And while I think that the people in politics have finally gotten to a point where they really appreciate the value of what I bring to the party, I don't believe in it anymore. I believe in you more than I believe in politics. So in that case, if you want to support this channel, go to thedukereport.substack.com and become a paying subscriber, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/the Duke Report, and you can just buy me a coffee, or you can buy my book on Amazon, or you can click the shop button on the Substack and you can buy a t-shirt. And I am thinking about making Cabal t-shirts with the design, because I think that it is an important idea to kind of float this thing out in the world, because if it is true that this is the framework for the way that the world is really controlled, the people who control the world don't want anyone to know this. Okay. That's why I call it 60th degree Freemasonry. This is like the biggest secret in the world, if true. And nobody want the people who are in this organization, they don't want you to know this. So spread it far and wide. Try to figure it out yourself. And if you've got better ideas, let me know. You can leave comments on notes, or you could become a paying subscriber to the Duke Report, and you can leave comments on the posts that I put up. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and thanks for joining me. And I hope to see you again next week. Bye-bye.